In a forest filled with animals, a lively rabbit was known for his speed and his habit of bragging about it. He would often hop around, challenging anyone to a race. "I am the fastest in the forest," he boasted to the other animals. "No one can beat me in a race." The other animals grew tired of his constant bragging, but none of them dared to challenge him, because they knew how fast he could run. One day, while the rabbit was boasting as usual, an old tortoise, known for his slow and steady nature, spoke up. "I may not be fast, but I will race you," said the tortoise in a calm and steady voice. The rabbit and the other animals burst into laughter at the idea of the slow tortoise challenging the swift rabbit. The rabbit, feeling overly confident, agreed to the race. "This will be the easiest victory of my life," he thought to himself. He even joked, "Shall I give you a head start, tortoise?" The tortoise simply replied, "We will start together, and may the best one win." The date for the race was set, and the news quickly spread through the forest. On the day of the race, all the forest animals gathered to watch. The fox was chosen as the referee, and he laid out the rules. The race would start at the big oak tree and finish at the riverbank. "On your marks, get set, go," shouted the fox, and the race began. The rabbit dashed off, leaving the tortoise far behind. The rabbit ran at top speed, covering a large distance in just a few minutes. When he turned back to look, he could barely see the tortoise moving slowly along the path. "This race is in the bag," the rabbit thought. "Why not take a little break?" Spotting a patch of soft grass under a shady tree, he lay down for a short nap. Meanwhile, the tortoise continued plodding along at his usual slow pace. He did not stop or look back. Step by step, he steadily moved forward, determined to complete the race. He knew that speed was not his strength, but persistence and patience were. The rabbit, enjoying his nap, slept much longer than he had intended. The gentle breeze and warm sunshine lulled him into a deep sleep. Hours passed, and the rabbit remained blissfully unaware of the race he was supposed to be winning. As the tortoise approached the area where the rabbit was sleeping, he noticed his opponent lying under the tree. Without stopping, the tortoise continued on his way, one slow and steady step at a time. The other animals watched in amazement as the tortoise made progress. Eventually, the rabbit woke up, feeling refreshed and confident. "The tortoise is probably miles behind," he thought. But as he stretched and looked ahead, he saw something that shocked him. The tortoise was far ahead, nearing the finish line. Panic gripped the rabbit. He sprang up and dashed towards the finish line as fast as his legs could carry him. His feet pounded against the ground, and he pushed himself harder than ever before, hoping to catch up to the tortoise. As the tortoise approached the finish line, he could hear the frantic footsteps of the rabbit gaining on him. Though his legs ached and his body was tired, he kept going, step by step. The tortoise didn't look back or get distracted. He was focused on reaching the goal. The rabbit was now just a few steps away from overtaking the tortoise. He ran with all his might, his heart racing with the thought of avoiding the embarrassment of losing to a slow tortoise. But it was too late. With one final step, the tortoise crossed the finish line, just moments before the rabbit could catch up. The forest erupted in cheers for the tortoise, who had won the race through his perseverance and determination.
Dippy was a small, blue dinosaur with a long neck, stubby legs, and a tail that wagged when he was excited. He lived with his family in a big valley where the leaves were always fresh, and the river was crystal clear. But one day, while Dippy was chasing a colorful butterfly, he wandered far from his family and got lost in the deep, dark forest. Dippy looked around and realized he didn't know where he was. The trees seemed much taller than before, and the forest was filled with unfamiliar sounds, chirps, growls, and rustles in the bushes. Dippy's little heart began to beat fast. Oh no! How will I find my way back home? He thought. Just as Dippy started to feel scared, he heard a friendly voice say, "Hello there, little one. Are you lost?" Dippy turned around and saw a gentle triceratops named Trixie. She had 3 horns on her head and a big frill around her neck. She looked kind and was chewing on some leaves. "Yes," Dippy said, sniffling. "I was following a butterfly, and now I can't find my way back home." "Don't worry, little Dippy," said Trixie. "I'll help you. I know this forest very well. We'll find your family together." And so, Dippy and Trixie began their journey. As they walked, Trixie told Dippy stories about the different dinosaurs who lived in the forest. "Over there," she said, pointing with her horn, "is where the Stegosaurus family lives. They have big, bony plates on their backs to protect them from danger." Just as Trixie was finishing her story, a loud asterisk stomp, stomp, stomp asterisk shook the ground. "What was that?" Dippy asked, his eyes wide. Out from behind the trees came a huge dinosaur with sharp teeth and tiny little arms. It was a Tyrannosaurus Rex named Rexy. Dippy trembled with fear, but then he noticed something surprising. Rexy wasn't growling or chasing after them. Instead, he looked a bit sad. "Why do you look so down, Rexy?" asked Trixie. Rexy sighed. "I'm sad because I can't find my favorite ball. It rolled away when I was playing, and now it's lost." "Don't worry, Rexy," said Dippy, his fear vanishing. "We're good at finding things. We'll help you look for it." So, Dippy, Trixie, and Rexy began searching the bushes, looking behind rocks and under big leaves. Finally, Dippy spotted a shiny red ball stuck in a bush. "Here it is," he exclaimed, tugging it free with his little tail. Rexy was overjoyed. "Thank you, Dippy. You're a brave little dinosaur," he said. "And since you helped me, I'll help you find your way back home." Now, the 3 dinosaurs continued their journey together. They crossed a bubbling stream and climbed a small hill. When they reached the top, Dippy saw something familiar in the distance, the valley where he lived. "Look! That's my home," he cheered, his tail wagging excitedly. As they walked down the hill toward the valley, Dippy saw his mom and dad. They were searching everywhere, calling out his name. "Mom! Dad! I'm over here!" Dippy shouted, running toward them. His parents rushed over, scooping him up in a big dinosaur hug. "We were so worried about you, Dippy," his mom said. "How did you find your way back?" "I had help," Dippy replied, looking at Trixie and Rexy with a big smile. "Trixie guided me through the forest, and Rexy helped me cross the stream. We even found Rex's lost ball along the way." Dippy's parents thanked Trixie and Rexy for taking such good care of their little dinosaur. Part 1, The Gathering in the Jungle. Deep in the heart of the jungle, the animals lived in harmony. The tall trees, lush with green leaves, provided shade, while the rivers ran clear and cool. One day, as the sun rose high in the sky, the lion, known as the king of the jungle, decided to call a meeting. "Let us all come together and work to find food for everyone," he roared. His powerful voice echoed throughout the jungle, and soon, the animals gathered. Part 2, Lion's Plan for a Hunt. The lion stood on a rock, towering over the other animals, and spoke with authority. "Today, we will hunt together," he declared. "We shall combine our strength to catch a feast big enough for us all." The animals cheered, excited to work as a team. They were tired of searching for food alone and thought that by joining forces, they could catch something grand. Part 3, the hunting team is formed. The lion chose a few animals to join him on the hunt. "I will lead," he said proudly. "The leopard, fox, and wolf will assist me." The chosen animals felt honored and agreed to follow his lead. Together, they set out, prowling through the dense jungle, their senses keen and ready for action. Part 4, the search for prey. The hunting party moved silently, each member contributing in their way. The leopard used its sharp eyes to scan the tall grasses, the fox sniffed the air for the scent of prey, and the wolf listened for the faintest sound of movement. After some time, the fox caught a whiff of something delicious. "I smell an antelope nearby," he whispered, his nose twitching. Part 5, the chase begins. The lion nodded in agreement and led the charge. The animals sprang forward, their powerful legs pushing them swiftly through the jungle. The antelope, sensing danger, bolted, but the lion's team was fast and relentless. The leopard leaped ahead to steer the antelope toward the lion, while the wolf and fox chased from behind. Part 6, the successful hunt. After an intense chase, the lion pounced, and with a swift and powerful move, he brought the antelope down. The other animals gathered around, panting but pleased with their success. "We did it," said the fox, his eyes shining with pride. The wolf wagged his tail, and the leopard licked his lips. They were ready to feast after such a long and tiring effort. Part 7, dividing the spoils. With the antelope lying before them, the lion stood up tall. "Now," he began, "we shall divide the catch." The leopard, fox, and wolf looked at each other, thinking of how they would split the meal into equal parts. But before they could speak, the lion raised his paw. "As king of the jungle, I shall decide how it will be shared," he said. Part 8, the first share. The lion's part. The lion took a large chunk of the antelope. "This first share is mine because I am the king," he announced, his voice booming. "It is my right to take the first part for leading the hunt and ensuring our success." The other animals, though disappointed by the lion's large portion, said nothing, as they respected his position as the leader. Once upon a time, in a bustling village surrounded by lush meadows and a winding river, there lived a dog named Bruno. Bruno was always on the lookout for food and had a reputation for being greedy. One day, after sniffing around the marketplace, he managed to snatch a juicy bone from a butcher's stall. Bruno was delighted with his prize and quickly ran off before anyone could chase him away. Eager to enjoy his bone without interruption, Bruno searched for a quiet spot away from the noisy market and the prying eyes of other animals. His nose led him down a dirt path that meandered through the village and toward a small wooden bridge that crossed over the river. He thought it would be the perfect place to rest and savor his delicious treat. Bruno trotted up onto the bridge, the wooden planks creaking under his paws. As he reached the middle, he paused to catch his breath, the bone still clamped tightly in his mouth. The river below was calm, and the water mirrored the bright blue sky and the trees that lined its banks. It was a peaceful moment, and Bruno felt quite pleased with himself. As Bruno glanced down into the clear water, he noticed what seemed to be another dog staring up at him. The other dog had a bone just as large and juicy as his own. But Bruno, not realizing it was merely his reflection, believed that a rival dog was trying to steal his glory. He felt a surge of greed and jealousy. Bruno thought to himself, If I can snatch that bone too, I'll have twice as much to enjoy." The idea of having 2 bones made his mouth water even more, and his eyes gleamed with desire. He became fixated on the other dog in the water and didn't even consider that it could be a trick of his own mind. Unable to resist the temptation, Bruno made a bold decision. He would bark fiercely to scare the other dog away and then grab the bone that the dog held. Without thinking twice, Bruno took a deep breath, preparing to unleash his loudest bark. As Bruno opened his mouth to bark, the bone slipped from between his teeth. In an instant, it fell from his jaws, tumbling through the air before hitting the water with a splash. The bone sank quickly out of sight, carried away by the gentle current. Bruno's bark turned into a howl of frustration as he realized what had happened. Panicking, Bruno leaned over the edge of the bridge, hoping to see the bone still floating in the river. But it was gone, and no matter how hard he stared, there was no sign of it. He jumped down from the bridge and ran along the riverbank, peering into the water in search of his lost treasure. Bruno's heart sank as he continued his frantic search. He had let his greed get the better of him and lost the bone he already had because he foolishly desired another. He felt foolish and ashamed, and his stomach growled hungrily, reminding him of what he had given up for a mere illusion. As Bruno sulked by the riverbank, a frog hopped up beside him. "What's the matter, Bruno?" croaked the frog, noticing the dog's miserable expression. "I have," Bruno sighed. "I dropped my bone into the river because I tried to grab the bone of another dog. But when I barked, I realized that the other dog was just my reflection." The frog tilted his head, giving Bruno a wise look. "That's the trouble with greed, my friend," he said. "It can make us see things that aren't real and blind us to the good things we already have. If you had been content with your bone, you wouldn't be empty-pawed now." Bruno hung his head, feeling the weight of the frog's words. The truth was bitter, but it was a lesson that he needed to learn. Accepting his mistake, Bruno turned away from the river and began the slow walk back to the village. His paws felt heavy, and his heart even heavier, but he knew there was nothing he could do to bring the bone back.